Alright, welcome to episode 116, I think, of Water Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw the conflict in South America, where the red country in Chile took over the other red Chilean, or brown Chilean country, over in some other continents. I believe we saw the partition of the yellow country, just above Ukraine, and there's probably some other stuff, like, did Gong see that last episode? There's a war in Libya, I remember that. Good job, me. Anyway, in today's episode, we will see some more wars and more radicalism stuff. So that's exciting. But first off, we need to head over to Japan. Because the Japanese fascist country, which is this one right here, number one, they're doing something interesting with religion. Japan is actually very, very, like, it's all the same religion, really, in Japan. I don't know why these islands, okay, that's annoying. Islands are not filled in, because I guess they just couldn't be bothered. So we didn't. But the Japanese, as I said before, they're doing something pretty interesting, and that is, gonna go this color. They are creating their own religion separate from Korean religion, just to fall on Japanese faith, and it's not really quite caught steam with it wouldn't be in that bit. It's not really fully caught up with the rest of the island, so it's more just like a southern thing. But it could spread a lot to the rest of the northern part of the country. But at the moment, it's just some southern experiment where people were quite interested in doing this. They felt more separate, and Japanese, they believed, had its own special identity. So that's cool. But yeah, war. Because they're also going to do that. And unfortunately, for the northern Japanese country, they are an obvious target for this nation. So Japanese forces start to amass in the northern areas of their country before just beginning a pretty quick naval invasion towards the southern part of the island. This country's not done a whole lot. They have got some cool, like, Ainu nation though. Like all the modern day Ainu people are. Historic, there's not that many of them left, I don't think. But they take the capital with relative ease and then navally invade towards the southern part of the island. At this point, they very easily got naval supremacy. Japan has a very strong navy. I feel like that's something kind of important if you're an archipelago country. So that looks well for them. I don't know what these little bits. What is that? What's going on? That's fine. Anyway, from here they begin their invasion up into Sakhalin, which apparently has quite a lot of cities in it. Most of the Kuril Islands, which is fall pretty easily. So they're all done, and finally Sakhalin will surrender once the city's captured. And there we go. That's the end of northern Japan country. So in a peace treaty, quite predictably, we're going to see full annexation into the Japanese state, or the Japanese empire, really. This is quite a cool Japan. I quite like it. Also looks a bit better now. I don't know, something about the northern Japanese country was throwing it off, but it looks cool and red now. Anyway, let's go to the Americas. The Americas is cool. Let's go to South America, because we need to head to northern Peruvian country, and that is the fascist republic. That's not a republic. Fascist state of northern Peru. And we have the communist state of the People's Republic of southern Peru down here in the south, and they're in an interesting spot, really, because they're surrounded entirely by fascists, which is why they're part of this communist alliance. They may have requested to join the European Communist Alliance. Part of me is like, maybe they wouldn't accept you just because this could start World War V, and they don't want to do that. So this country is just all on its own, and pretty predictably, Brazilian forces, and also some of the Chilean ones, but mostly Brazilian forces, will amass in the northern country, this orange one, to invade the southern one, of course, because they have claims on the southern country. They're part of the same colony. They were like, well, we could have united into one after decolonization, but they didn't, because it's really messy in decolonization. But this country has a pretty easy time storming through the territory. There is a big mountain range, so I guess this is like two separate bits, and the central area isn't really occupied. However, in the south, we're going to see the Chilean country, who's eager for land still, send their forces up to the north. There's not a whole lot going on down the southern part of the country, once again, and these mountains. How they managed to move, isn't that the bit that we Atacama Desert? Somewhere in this circle. But most of the fighting is done in the northern area, as the capital and the entire coastal area of the country is captured. And at this point, there's one city left, somewhere in the mountains or the rainforest, and they decide to give up. Good choice. Alright, and over to the peace treaty. I don't want to find I already drew the border down here, so I don't want to find the lilac. But this country annexes, or the Chilean country annexes the southern part, whilst up here in the north, the northern Peruvian government gains most of it. And now we have a South America dominated by fascists. There's no more communist countries in South America. And looking at the ideology map down here, there's only one, well, technically two, if you count the Falklands. There's 2 liberal countries down here, but every single other country is an autocracy. So that's quite concerning. I don't know if you probably don't count the Lesser Antilles as a South American country. I don't think I would. I think these islands are though, like Trinidad and Tobago, in my mind. So that's cool. Anyway, yeah, scary fascist South America. But with the Peruvians becoming a fascist country, oh wait, they already were in the alliance. Never mind. I guess they were already in that. Yep, they stay in that then. Over to Europe. Europe looks pretty cool, more centralized, and really cool looking Ingria. However, we're not going to Ingria. We're going to one of the most, I don't know, kind of interesting countries. You're really weird, orange country, because they're not an ethno-state at all. They're like a dictatorship, but there's like ethnicity there because that's important to them. They do some genocide stuff. But they weren't formed because of an ethnicity. They just formed as like a puppet regime, and it's weird and strange. But the Italians will be helping them out once again today, and this time to invade a fairly powerful country, the Galician country, over here in Iberia. So Italy, the strongest country in the world, will be sending forces into this nation, and they start to move their troops right across the border. They're going to try and spearhead towards the capital area, or the coast down here in Portugal, or just do both, and take some more centre, and this region starts to push out towards the capital area, but they kind of stop there. However, it's kind of threatened, this territory, so their supply routes to go to the south have been a little weakened, as they kind of just like this. They basically lose control over the south, and this force is able to move down to this territory. They're quite afraid of the Moroccans moving into this, so they divert some forces down there, which does result in a counteroffensive for the Galicians, as they manage to retake some of their northern territories. Sorry, but once they manage to regroup up here in the north, yeah, everything goes quite badly. They knock out the French from being able to gain anything because they're scared of the communist French. Yeah, I thought something silly like that. Scared of the communist French taking anything, so they just keep on going until they finally get to like major urban area of the country up here in Galicia, where lots of the people live and there's lots of major cities. However, it doesn't last too long. To be fair, it probably does, like a few weeks or something, for them to fully take over the rest of the country. But ultimately, it will fall, and they don't do too much to stop Italy now forming Iberia, which is pretty exciting. A formidable nation. Well, Iberia hasn't been united since the Spanish, like episode 56. So it's kind of funny that they've been united again, under a country who really isn't totally obsessed with the Spanish identity, apart from the fascist stuff, in which they are. I don't know, it's not even Andalusia or Galicia, it's just orange guy. Anyway, that's fun. I might want to do some more communism, so let's have a look at the religion map. Communists. Actually, I just remembered one more thing that will become quite important for this. Heading down to Morocco now, they're quite afraid. The Libyans, they turned fascist. Ghana has gone fascist. This guy is now expanding all across your border, and there's only one more bit really for them to take to reunify Iberia. And the Moroccans are starting to get very afraid. If we head to the Moroccan state, we can see they are a very left-wing country, and they're going to become even more left-wing. As the Moroccans don a new communist ideology, I think becoming the strongest communist country in the world. There's not that many, so yeah. Are you stronger than Norway? I'm not actually sure. I don't know. Cool Morocco though, they're communist, and they will also adopt the atheist sort of stuff from the other communist countries. However, quite importantly, they will also be joining the Communist Military Alliance. It all takes place over like a bit of a longer amount of time, but it is quite quick because they're quite afraid. To be fair, I mean that's fair. I would be afraid. Some other knock-on effects of this are the dissolution of the Moroccan Military Alliance. Before they were kind of fine with their allies, but you know these guys are all fascist or dictatorships. Morocco is now quite liberal. So now it's just Carthage and these two guys, but without the competition, all of the North African economic alliances will dissolve. That's kind of a shame. Over to the Hijaz Economic Alliance, that will actually be expanding, however, over to the Hijaz allies, which of course the Libyans and the Persians, so you see Libya and Persia get involved in this alliance. There's a few more countries who could be interested in things like this, but I don't really know. Oh, Daman will probably join, and maybe the salmon country. I'm not sure. I don't really think there's a whole lot of other nation who would really consider it. I think about the Indian or Central Asian Economic Alliance, because I was wondering who would actually join that. I feel like the Orange country, they haven't really done anything at all. Forever. This Orange country over here in Central Asia has been incredibly just. They've been there. That's sure. They've been there for some of it. But now they join this economic alliance, so that's cool for them. Anyway, I said I was going to do some religious stuff, so I'm going to go do that now. Ish. There we go. Alright, as you can see, atheism has now spread over a lot, especially in Europe. Denmark is apparently like entirely atheist. Africa is a bit atheist, like in the south of Morocco. But yeah, Europe's pretty interesting looking. And there's Poland in the middle, just surrounded by atheist countries. I think I might do some fascist stuff now. Alright, so I have drawn in some new borders for the religion. I don't know how noticeable it's going to be, but as you can see in Hijaz, the religion area is a lot bigger. Libya's torn up some stuff. Rome wasn't too big, and Poland's not doing anything. Over here in Korea, not Korea, but you know what I mean. The Vancouver country, they fill out this entire area, and down here in South America, the Chilean country has pushed out all the European Peruvians who got their religion from France. From this area, this bit's really weird religiously, because this is like old normal Spanish religion, and this is the South American version. It's bizarre. Anyway, speaking of the Vancouver country, we do actually need to head there, but first, I want to see if I did the power rankings before. I believe I did, because I don't think it was 2056 last episode. Number 1 is Italy, number 2, the Ganjiatic country, number 3 is Northern Brazil, number 4 is Norway, so they're the strongest communist country. Number 5 is Morocco, 6 Poland, 7 Britain, 8 is Vancouver, who, to be fair, big Vancouver. 9 is Tibet, and 10 is New England. Although I'm kind of like, Hijaz and New England are very close in power. It's really a toss-up between them. Also, Chile is kind of moving their way up there. There's just a lot of pretty strong countries at this point. It's not like a World War III level where there's loads of superpowers, but we're getting lots more, like mid-powers. I don't know if we're going to get out of this stage of lots of, like developing quite strong countries and no superpowers. We probably will. But the world's globalized so much since World War III that it seems kind of tricky. Anyway, over to Vancouver. As I said before, they're going to be invading another country, and this time the country will be California, which is going to be really economically beneficial for them. I wonder, will California be as rich and influential in 2056? I don't know, but it is entirely focused on the California area, so it's definitely not going to be completely the same as real-life California. This nation was colonized by the Dutch, and because of that, they're not really all that Korean. I think there's a few Korean areas, like in the very northern part of the country, but yeah, there's not too much going on. However, these guys just want the land because they're fascist. So they send their forces in mostly around this northern area up here and take over these 3 pretty important cities. After that, the front line kind of just stagnates because California has a pretty good military. They are one of the stronger North American countries, but not like super strong. However, Vancouver does do a pretty good job at pushing towards the capital city and threatening both of these other central cities. Over here in the east, there's not much going on really. But finally, after quite a long time of fighting, the capital is taken and they start to move down quite a lot down the western coast. Over here in the central regions, however, the Vancouverians are being pushed back by Californian forces. However, across the coast, they just got huge naval dominance, and California is just failing against them as they start to move down towards Baja California. Well, they are starting to struggle once again, with their plan being to cut across and separate off the territory and this area from the coast, which takes a while, but it is successful, and now the split is entirely enclosed. Just not a really great spot. They lose the city and they lose some of the other ones, and at this point this bit's kind of collapsing until finally it does fall apart. Big siege of a load of mountain. Over here in Baja California, both of these cities are captured, and at this point they start to use their navy, like fully, to go and try and naval invade some of these random peninsula cities of this really weird peninsula. They capture the one at the bottom, and at this point they just start to move down from the north and the southern bits towards this final city over here, which they've fortified pretty well. but not well enough to stop Vancouver. But something to note, which is pretty important about this war, is that millions, tens of millions of people in California left the country. Like over half of the population fled California so they didn't have to live under Vancouver rule, because like all the other European religion people up here in this area, they got genocided, and no one wants to live in California if they're going to be under Vancouver rule. So for that reason, loads of people flee to these four countries, really, maybe this one a bit, but mostly these four Mexican countries, and that's a lot of people. I mean, 2056, it's probably like 60 million people in this country, maybe more than that. So there's like 40 million people fleeing this area, and that's going to really change some stuff for this region. So we'll see what that's like. But the peace treaty, as you may expect, is much like most of the peace treaties of this time period, because everyone's aggressive and angry. It's fully annexed into the nation of Vancouver, who now has the entire Western Pacific part of America. They're really cool looking, and I like them a lot. So there we go. Other than the fascist stuff, which is horrible. Yeah, California, ideologically, what's going on there? Oh, you're a left-wing democracy. There's a few left-wing democracies here, and these two guys are just autocratic. Anyway, here's an ideology map, in case you were interested. Bam, it looks pretty cool, and not fully updated. Anyway, yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. I don't think there was anything else I plan on doing, like unions or something, or alliances. Actually, there might be maybe. I don't know. I don't think anyone else is going to join a military alliance, because I can't think who would. And then economic alliances are a thing that exist in the world, but there's just not many of them. There's not really one in Europe. I mean, there could be like a communist economic alliance, but then again, I don't know. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to leave today's episode here. Thanks for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Goodbye.